Alright guys, if you've watched any of my previous videos, especially the one where I did the walk around of the truck, you'll know that I've been battling a fuel pressure issue for the better part of a year. So in this video, I'm going to pull the bed off the truck, which is part of how I'm going to have to fix this issue. I have a brand new fuel sending unit, and I'm going to walk you through basically everything I did from start to finish, go through all the symptoms that I dealt with and how they kind of developed over time. And hopefully this will help you guys if you're experiencing the same issue or maybe early signs of the issue that I've had, and you can stop it before it becomes a problem or takes out your high pressure fuel pump. So let's get right to it. All right guys, so about a year ago, started to experience some fluctuations in my fuel pressure, and shortly after I'd installed a gauge package from GlowShift. So I know everybody kind of has their own opinions of GlowShift and their quality and things like that, but I'll give you mine. So the install was super easy. It came with everything that I needed. Customer support was good. I liked it's kind of like an economy package, so it wasn't like super high dollar, but really probably helped prevent a really costly repair and taking out my VP44 due to these fuel pressure fluctuations and the complete loss of fuel pressure that I'll tell you about. All right, so what I first started to have happen was I started to see a lot more fluctuation in my fuel pressure when I was driving, especially accelerating, and then when I would let off and just coast, my fuel pressure would go from like 11 PSI up to like 19 PSI, and that gauge needle was just completely bouncing. So I wasn't sure if it was the gauge itself, obviously, or if I had something going on with the fuel pressure. My RPM, my tachometer, that needle was not moving at all. That part was holding steady. So that's kind of where I was a little skeptical if it was truly not, providing enough fuel and having that fluctuation, or if it was just in the gauge. So I started to do some research online, went to FASS's site and watched a ton of videos there, read a bunch of forums, and a lot of the information I got was all related to like Duramaxes and Power Strokes, and I really didn't find much for the situation that I was dealing with. But what I did end up finding was a video that FASS put out, and I'll put a link in the description below. That's on YouTube, and it was an update for the Legacy Series FASS pumps, which is what I have on my truck. I think the FASS system's probably 6 years old or 7 years old, something like that. And it was the fuel pressure regulator that is on the return side of the FASS pump. So that is the part that actually regulates your fuel pressure. And as soon as I watched that and saw what they were talking about, I was like, man, that's got to be my issue, right? So got a hold of the guys over at FASS. They were very, very helpful. The parts themselves, I think, were actually cheaper than the shipping. So it was a fitting, a spring that actually helps create that pressure, and then instead of what came with it, which is a little rubber ball that would actually kind of misshapen and cause you to have weird fluctuations in your fuel pressure. It was actually like a billet little cone poppet that fits over top of the spring and prevents a lot of the issues that the original design had. Got that installed in probably 5 minutes, right? It took longer to get the tools out than I think that I actually did to install that. And my fuel pressure was just perfect after that. It held really solid at like 16 PSI, which is where it should be, and never watched that needle jump at all after that. So now comes the fun part. So I thought at the time everything was good. And the first time it showed itself, I was actually pulling out and taking a right turn, and I look over at my fuel pressure gauge just out of habit, and it goes to 0. Truck's still running. Obviously a little bit of panic sets in, so like I pull off the first turn, which is like a small community, and just pulled over, and was debating shutting it off or not, because I didn't want to use all the fuel that was in those filters and run that pump dry. And then I noticed that that fuel pressure gauge started to climb back up to where it should be at 16, and started to kind of calm down a little bit, but drove it back home. It didn't do it again. And then I was like, man, I wonder if I'm, sucking air. I wonder if one of my fuel filters isn't tight, or I got a fitting loose, something like that. So got it back to the house, went through the whole fuel system, couldn't find anything that stood out, no signs of leaks, nothing like that. And really wasn't sure what caused it, was hoping it was just a fluke and wasn't gonna happen again. Well, it did happen again. And it happened a bunch of times. started to be more and more consistent, and then I started to be able to determine the trend, right, which is where you help get the diagnosis from, and you got to pinpoint when it's doing it if you can, especially when it's intermittent. So the trend that I realized was anytime I turned left, turn right, my fuel pressure would go to 0, especially if it was like 3/4 of a tank or lower, and then when I would straighten back out, and that fuel pressure would climb back up to where it was supposed to be. As long as I was either sitting still at idle or driving straight, my fuel pressure maintained perfectly. It's when I started to turn that it got unhappy. So that's when I really started to think, well, man, maybe I've got an issue in my fuel sending unit, and tried to do some research to see if anybody else had an issue similar to that with their fuel system and their fuel sending unit, and I couldn't find anything online at all, at least nothing that matched that. So either I don't have good search skills, or there really truly isn't anybody that's had this issue that has decided to post it online. I'm sure there's been people that have dealt with this, fixed it on their own and moved on. So I guess I'll be the one that'll throw a video up, and hopefully this will save somebody down the road some money and some headache. All right, so to fix this issue, I had two options. I could drop the fuel tank, and my driveway is on a slant, so dropping the fuel tank and just battling the fuel tank from rolling out from under the truck, and possibly spilling fuel. If I didn't, want to drop it full, which is what it is right now, it's full tank, I'd have to pull that fuel out and find some container that I could put it in to hopefully reuse it. And all of that seemed like a lot. So I pulled the bed off and laid it on its front side and inside the garage so I don't get yelled at by the HOA. And now I've got full access to that sending unit. And it was probably a good thing that I did that too, because I didn't realize, again, I didn't install this FASS system in the truck. The bolt that actually holds the bed on here, it's not this bolt, but the actual bolt, is the only thing that was holding this entire assembly. Someone put a tech screw that looked like it was meant to drill into the bottom of the bed to also hold it, but that actually wasn't doing anything. So it was just hanging off of that one bolt, which is not a good design at all. And whoever did the install on it, I hope has a day job, and they should stick to that instead. So another thing I noticed was that this main supply hose is pretty dry rotted. You can see that when I flex it like so. And there is the old sending unit here. So we have full access to everything, which is awesome. I'm also going to clean up the frame. I've got a gooseneck, hideaway gooseneck hitch that's in the bed as well, and that is super crusty. So we're gonna get that cleaned up. But focusing on the fuel system today, I got some new hose. I've got AN fittings that will actually be able to be used with the new sending unit from Fleece, which we'll go over in just a second. And hopefully be able to get this dry rotted hose replaced, get the mounting situation taken care of, get it all cleaned up, and be in a lot better spot when we go to run this truck. All right, so we've got the replacement fuel sending unit from Fleece. This I purchased through Thoroughbred Diesel. I'll put the link in the description below as well. We got some AN fittings from Evil Energy, and then we've got some 1/2-inch TAC 8 fuel line, fuel hose, from Evil Energy as well. I'll put the links for those in the description below, and we'll replace that supply hose with those. This top box is going to be the hardware kit. Awesome koozie, can't wait to use that. A new gasket, so between the sending unit and the tank, this is your gasket there, which is awesome. It's got some AN fittings. If you're going to use the factory fittings, which one of them we will have to use, which will be the return from the VP44. We'll replace one of them with this, which will be nice to get a new one on there. Here's your float to get your fuel level. So we'll be able to get that corrected. The fuel gauge also has not been reading correctly since I purchased the truck. 1/8 of the tank is actually E, so get that corrected. All right, and then here is the best part, and that is your billet aluminum Fleece sending unit. So much simpler design, much better. This is meant to be used with the aftermarket lift pumps. So whether you're running an AirDog, FASS, it has AN style fittings or what comes installed on it, which is like your factory fuel clips. So no matter what you're running, but if you're running it to your FASS system, AirDog, aftermarket lift pump, this is meant for that, which is I'm really excited to see what my fuel pressure does after getting this installed. All right, so we're gonna get this hose measured out and get a replacement made. Get that sending unit pulled out and get everything changed over and installed, and should be good to go after that. So recruited some help, my oldest here, and we're gonna get this knocked out. You just want to make sure that the ends are nice and smooth, okay? If the end is like curved, okay, when you put this fitting on, it's not going to seal right, okay? So you want to make sure it's a nice flat surface. That's going to give you, see how this one is kind of wallered out a little bit. Goes on reversed, so it goes on like this. Okay. And you'll just push it till it clicks. There's the click. Yep. It's a different style fitting.
Oh no.
It's okay.
Not good.
It's all right. We'll pull this one off. Okay, so now go ahead and install it. And then you just want to make sure that the holes line up. So gently. Hold on. There you go. Nice. High five. Boom. All right, so now we need to put the hose here. Alright guys, super easy install. We got the replacement hose made. That's all torqued. If you guys are curious, these AN fittings for tack 8 or 1/2 inch, they are 22 foot-pounds. So those have been torqued, so we're good there. Hose new. This is the return from the BP44, so we were using that. The little plastic locking clip that actually came with this kit is too big, as we found when we tried to install it. So just pulled the smaller one off of the one we pulled out of the tank. Plug is a direct fit. I mean, this kit is awesome. So just word of advice, before you guys go to actually pull the original sending unit out, you want to make sure there's no debris around the outer lip of the tank. It can, when you're pulling this out, it can fall down inside, and then you've got dirt in your tank, and that's not great. So definitely want to kind of pre-clean that before you pull it out. And then this does not come with the kit, so you want to make sure you don't destroy that getting it off. And then when you actually thread it back on, they're kind of notorious for wanting to cross thread, so I usually would kind of spin it counterclockwise just a little bit to kind of get the threads all lined up, and then gently by hand you know, go all the way until it's tight. Mine came off by hand. I didn't have to use like a strap wrench or anything, so I would say that it does not need to be ridiculously tight, just enough to make sure that, you know, is making a good seal, and you should be good to go. All right, so now we're at the moment of startup. It's maintained fuel pressure pretty well up until this point at startup, so I'm not really expecting anything new until I actually go to, you know, drive it. But I do need to bleed the air out of the system now that I've had, you know, the hose off and stuff. So if you just cycle your key on, your little electric fuel pump, FASS system, air dog, whatever, is going to get signal for just a split second. So if you want that fuel pump to run and actually, you know, pull fuel, you're going to have to bump the starter, and I'm probably going to have to do that a couple times to get all the air out of it. All right guys, so new sending unit is in, and as you guys just saw, the fuel pressure is holding steady right at 17 PSI, which is actually the highest I've ever gotten consistently. And I definitely think it's because of that sending unit having a much less restriction to be able to pull for that FASS system. I mean, it's literally made for that. So super excited about that. At first you saw the first video, you actually saw some of that fluctuation, and I think that's just air, you know, working its way through the system. But after it ran for a little bit, right at 17, super solid. So here's the old sending unit that I pulled out, and this is actually not at all what I thought. So the inside, and the part that actually, which is that black hose right there, where my finger is wiggling, that is actually your pickup tube, or your suction side. And when you push down with this header, or the sending unit, when it goes inside the tank, that actually flexes. So I don't know if there's a little hairline crack in there that I can't see, but there's the first bend, and then it goes down. Oh, excuse me. There it is. It goes down and then coils around and then goes down towards the bottom where that pickup cup is. But either way, there's the bottom, guys, and that's like the little screen or sock that's in the very bottom where your pickup is. And if you wipe that with a rag, there's actually like debris and like whatever that stuff is actually comes off on the rag. So this one definitely needed to be replaced. Pretty nasty. Even the little float here is chewed up as well, and I don't know if that's just whatever material, this foam material, that it breaks down over time sitting in the fuel, or if it's just a poor quality float, you know, I don't know. But either way, super excited that this has been replaced. This has been a real thorn in my side and been racking my head, and I want to get this truck back to running like it should. So this is a big step in getting there. All right, so who else thinks that this whole little setup just looks fast? I mean, the truck has like a 0 to 60 in about 3.4 minutes, but it looks fast and it sounds fast, all right? I guess that's really all that matters, right?
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, hit the thumbs up, and don't forget to hit that bell thing.
Make all the demons quiet, yeah, we were built to thrive, yeah.